The restaurant was alive with a symphony of sounds, the sizzling of meats on the grill, the clinking of glasses, and the soft murmur of patrons engaged in conversations. It was a Friday night, and the dining room was bustling with energy. In the corner, a violinist played softly, adding a melodic backdrop to the lively atmosphere. At one of the tables near the window, the glow of the city lights reflected off the polished surfaces, setting the scene for an unexpected encounter. Amid the crowd, Sarah, a waitress in her mid-20s, expertly navigated her way between tables, balancing trays piled high with dishes. Her dark hair was pulled back in a neat bun, and her white shirt and black apron were slightly wrinkled from a long shift. While her exterior may have seemed unremarkable, within her lay a burning passion for music that she rarely had the opportunity to express. As she approached a table occupied by a group of well-dressed patrons, her eyes fell on a man who stood out among the rest. He was tall and impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, his hair perfectly styled. A gold watch glinted on his wrist, and his confidence radiated as he commanded the attention of those around him. He was known to many in the city as a millionaire tech mogul, someone who had made his fortune in innovative startups and lavish investments. Tonight, he had come to this bustling restaurant, likely seeking both a good meal and a chance to show off his status. "Can I get you anything to drink?" Sarah asked, forcing a smile, trying to maintain her usual cheerfulness despite her exhaustion. "Yeah, I'll have a whiskey neat," the millionaire replied, his voice smooth and commanding. He glanced at her, then added, "And what about some entertainment? You got anyone playing the violin tonight?" "Actually, we have a violinist in the corner," Sarah replied, motioning toward the musician. He waved his hand dismissively. No, I want to hear you play. I bet you've got something hidden in there." His gaze was piercing, a challenge glimmering in his eyes. Caught off guard, Sarah felt her heart race. "Oh, I don't really play anymore," she stammered, her confidence wavering. "Come on, I dare you," he said, with a playful grin, egging her on. The table erupted in laughter, but it felt more like mockery than camaraderie. Something stirred within Sarah, a flicker of defiance. Though she hadn't touched her violin in years, the challenge ignited a spark of nostalgia. She had loved playing, losing herself in the melodies that flowed from her fingers. But life had pulled her away from that passion, leaving her with only memories of the music she once created. "Okay," she said finally, surprising herself. "If you really want to hear me play, I'll do it." With a rush of adrenaline, Sarah walked over to the small stage area where the violinist had been playing. She felt the eyes of the entire restaurant on her, a mix of anticipation and skepticism swirling in the air. She could feel the heat of embarrassment creeping up her cheeks, but she pushed through the fear. Taking a deep breath, she grasped the violin that had been left behind. The instrument felt foreign, yet familiar in her hands. As she adjusted the shoulder rest and drew the bow across the strings, she felt a wave of memories wash over her, her mother cheering her on at recitals, the joy of mastering difficult pieces and the thrill of performing in front of a crowd. It was as if she were stepping back in time, rediscovering a part of herself that had long been dormant. The first notes rang out, hesitant but clear. The audience fell silent, a collective breath held as they took in the unexpected performance. Sarah began to gain confidence, her fingers moving with increasing fluidity, transitioning from simple melodies to complex passages that showcased her talent. The rich sound of the violin resonated through the restaurant, cutting through the chatter and filling the space with an air of enchantment. As she played, she noticed the millionaire's expression transform from playful arrogance to genuine admiration. He leaned forward in his chair, captivated by the talent he had underestimated. The laughter from earlier had vanished, replaced by an appreciative hush as other patrons turned to watch the performance unfold. In those moments, Sarah felt liberated. The music became her voice, and she poured her emotions into each note, weaving a tapestry of sound that evoked both joy and longing. She closed her eyes, immersing herself in the rhythm, the bow dancing across the strings, taking her further away from the world around her. With each passing moment, the audience shifted from mere spectators to participants in a shared experience, a community drawn together by the beauty of the music. The atmosphere became charged with energy, the magic of the moment transforming the restaurant into something extraordinary. The waitstaff paused to watch, their own disbelief morphing into pride as they witnessed their co-worker unleash her hidden talent. As she reached the climax of her piece, the crescendo soared, and the audience erupted into applause, the sound echoing through the restaurant like a thunderous wave. Sarah opened her eyes, momentarily blinded by the bright lights above her. She saw smiling faces, wide-eyed patrons who had been touched by the beauty of her performance. Feeling a mix of exhilaration and relief, Sarah took a deep bow, her heart racing with gratitude and disbelief. She had done it. She had stepped out of her comfort zone and shared a piece of herself with the world. But it wasn't just her performance that had changed the atmosphere. It was the reaction of the millionaire, whose eyes shone with newfound respect and intrigue. As he stood up, the applause subsided, and a profound silence fell over the room. It was a moment of revelation, not only for Sarah, but for the millionaire as well. "What did I just witness?" he exclaimed, breaking the stillness. "You have an incredible gift." His voice echoed with sincerity, and for the first time, Sarah saw him not as just a wealthy patron, but as someone who truly appreciated her talent. She felt a swell of pride and relief wash over her. Maybe, just maybe, this moment was the turning point she hadn't known she needed. As the applause died down, the millionaire approached Sarah, an eager expression on his face. "I want to talk to you about something," he said, his tone shifting from playful to serious. "You need to share this gift with more people. You shouldn't be waiting tables when you can be performing on stage." She felt a mix of excitement and disbelief wash over her. This wasn't just a fleeting compliment. He was suggesting something monumental. "Really?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling slightly. "Absolutely, I can help you. Let's discuss your future." In that moment, she realized her life was on the brink of transformation. She had stepped into the spotlight, and everything was about to change. The atmosphere in the restaurant buzzed with excitement following Sarah's surprise performance. Conversations resumed, but they were charged with a new energy, the kind that comes after a captivating moment. The sound of clinking glasses and the sizzling of dishes seemed to harmonize with the lingering notes of her violin as patrons animatedly discussed the unexpected talent they had just witnessed. As Sarah stepped down from the small stage, a sense of exhilaration and disbelief coursed through her. She had poured her heart into those few minutes, and the applause felt like a warm embrace. Yet as she returned to the rhythm of her waitressing duties, the adrenaline began to wane and reality crept back in. She was still just a waitress in a busy restaurant, navigating a sea of orders and requests. Her colleagues were buzzing with excitement, their chatter filled with words of praise. "Did you see that?" one of her fellow waitresses exclaimed, her eyes wide. "You were amazing, Sarah. I had no idea you could play like that." Another server chimed in. "I think half the room was ready to give you a standing ovation. You really stole the show." Sarah smiled, feeling a blush creep across her cheeks. "Thanks, guys. I haven't played in so long. It felt good to get up there again." The diners who had witnessed her performance were equally enthusiastic. Several approached her, eager to share their thoughts. A middle-aged woman with a warm smile clutched her glass of wine as she said, "You have such a gift. You must perform more often." "Yeah, you should come back and play again," a young man added, nodding vigorously. "I'd pay to see that. You made the night special." Each compliment wrapped around her like a soft blanket, soothing her lingering insecurities. She had stepped out of her comfort zone and shared her passion, and the response was overwhelming. Yet, in the back of her mind, a small voice questioned the feasibility of this new path. Could she really pursue music as a career? Did she have what it took? The millionaire watched from his table, a contemplative look on his face. He was discussing something animatedly with his companions, but every now and then his gaze would drift towards Sarah, a spark of interest flickering in his eyes. The contrast between his earlier bravado and his current demeanor was striking. He seemed more reflective, as if the performance had stirred something deep within him. As Sarah cleared plates from a nearby table, she overheard snippets of their conversation. "She's incredible," he said, a tone of admiration lacing his voice. "I've never seen anyone bring an audience together like that." One of his friends laughed. "You were just trying to embarrass her. Look how that turned out." "Yeah, well, I didn't expect to be blown away," he admitted, a hint of humility evident. "There's real potential in her. We should support her." His words ignited a flicker of hope in Sarah. What if this was her chance? But just as quickly, self-doubt crept in. Support her how? She wondered. She had been away from the music scene for so long, and the thought of returning was daunting. After finishing her shift, Sarah decided to take a break and step outside for some fresh air. The crisp evening breeze welcomed her as she wandered to a nearby bench. She gazed up at the stars twinkling against the night sky, her mind racing with possibilities. It felt surreal to think that just an hour ago she had been playing her heart out in front of an audience, and now she was grappling with the reality of her life. She recalled the faces of those who had watched her perform, the joy, surprise, and appreciation reflected in their expressions. It was a moment that had ignited something within her, a spark of creativity she hadn't realized was dormant. But could she really take this further? Just then, the door to the restaurant swung open, and the millionaire stepped outside, catching her off guard. He approached her with a smile, his earlier demeanor replaced by a more genuine warmth. "Hey, can we talk for a minute?" he asked, gesturing toward the bench. "Sure," she replied, her heart racing as he sat down next to her. "I wanted to say again how incredible you were tonight." "Seriously, you have something special," he began, his eyes searching hers for sincerity. "I don't often get moved by performances, but yours was different. It reminded me of why I fell in love with music in the first place." Sarah felt a swell of pride at his words. "Thank you. I haven't played like that in years. It was liberating." "I could see that. You were in your element," he said, nodding appreciatively. "Have you ever thought about pursuing music more seriously?" The question hung in the air, heavy with possibilities. Sarah hesitated, her thoughts tumbling over one another. "I used to dream about it, but life happened. I ended up working here and it felt like, I don't know, like I had to give up on those dreams." He leaned closer, his expression earnest. "You don't have to. You could have a real career in music. I could help you. I'm connected in the industry, and I know people who would love to hear you." Her heart raced at the thought, but doubts quickly overshadowed her excitement. "But I don't have any formal training, and I haven't performed regularly. What if I'm not good enough?" "You are good enough," he insisted, his tone firm but encouraging. "You just need to believe in yourself as much as everyone else believes in you. What I saw tonight was raw talent, something that can't be taught. With a little guidance, you could turn it into something remarkable." His words resonated deeply, echoing in her mind long after he had spoken them. Still, the fear of failure lingered. What if she took the leap and fell flat on her face? What if her moment of glory was just a fluke? "I need time to think about it," she said finally, meeting his gaze. "Of course, take all the time you need, but don't wait too long. Life is too short to hold back on what you love," he replied, his voice softening. As they sat there, the sounds of the city bustling around them, Sarah felt a glimmer of hope emerge from the depths of her uncertainty. For the first time in years, the idea of pursuing music didn't seem entirely out of reach. Perhaps this was the moment she had been waiting for, a chance to step into a new chapter of her life. As she watched the millionaire rise to leave, he turned back, a smile playing on his lips. "I really believe in you, Sarah. Just remember, you have the power to write your own story." With that, he walked back inside, leaving her alone on the bench, her mind swirling with thoughts. She was at a crossroads, the weight of decision resting heavily on her shoulders. The stars above shone brightly, illuminating the path ahead. What would she choose? Would she continue to play it safe, remaining in the familiar world of waitressing? Or would she take a leap of faith and embrace the unknown? In the days that followed, Sarah found herself replaying the evening over and over, each time feeling the thrill of performing swell within her. The applause echoed in her mind, a reminder of the joy she had experienced. As she went through her daily routine, the idea of stepping back into the world of music felt increasingly enticing, but it also frightened her. She began to explore possibilities, researching local music schools and community orchestras, even contemplating small open mic nights. She could feel her heart racing at the thought of performing again, but the fear of failure loomed large. Could she really make music her life again? Finally, one evening, after another long shift, she found herself sitting in her small apartment, the silence enveloping her like a shroud. She glanced over at her neglected violin, resting in the corner, and an urge to reconnect with it surged within her. With trembling hands, she picked up the instrument and let her fingers glide over the strings. As she began to play, the haunting melodies poured from her heart, washing over her and reminding her of the passion she had buried. The music felt like a conversation with her soul, echoing her hopes and fears. In that moment, the decision became clear. She could no longer ignore the call of her passion. She wanted to embrace her talent, to explore the possibilities that lay ahead. The millionaire's words echoed in her mind, resonating with a newfound determination. With renewed resolve, Sarah decided it was time to take the plunge. She would reach out to him, explore the opportunities he offered, and face her fears head-on. After all, she had already taken the first step by performing that night. Now she was ready to reclaim her music and her dreams. As the days turned into weeks, Sarah found herself caught in a whirlwind of emotions, her thoughts oscillating between exhilaration and apprehension. After her unforgettable performance at the restaurant, She had spent countless nights dreaming about a future in music, imagining herself on stage, lights shining bright, sharing her passion with the world. Yet with each passing day, the weight of reality pressed down on her, reminding her of the uncertainty that lay ahead. After much contemplation, she finally mustered the courage to reach out to the millionaire. It was a simple text, but it felt monumental to her. "Hi, this is Sarah from the restaurant. I've been thinking a lot about our conversation. I'd love to talk more about the music opportunities you mentioned." She hesitated before hitting send, her heart racing as she did. Within minutes, her phone buzzed with a response. "Absolutely. Let's meet this weekend. I can introduce you to some people in the industry who could help you." The excitement bubbled up within her, a mix of hope and fear coursing through her veins. She spent the next few days preparing herself, researching local venues, and even practicing new pieces on her violin, eager to show her potential. The day of their meeting arrived, and Sarah could hardly contain her nerves. She dressed carefully, opting for a simple but elegant outfit, a fitted black dress paired with comfortable yet stylish shoes. She glanced in the mirror one last time, adjusting her hair and taking a deep breath to calm her racing heart. "You can do this," she whispered to herself, trying to bolster her confidence. Arriving at the upscale cafe where they had agreed to meet, Sarah was struck by the ambiance, a chic setting with warm lighting, plush seating, and the aroma of freshly brewed coffee wafting through the air. She spotted him at a table in the corner, looking as polished as ever, a casual air about him despite the elegant surroundings. As she approached, he stood up with a smile, his demeanor welcoming. "Sarah? Great to see you again. I'm glad you reached out." "Thanks for meeting me," she replied, settling into the seat across from him. "I've been thinking about what you said and how much I'd love to pursue music more seriously." "Good, I'm excited to help you explore this path," he said, leaning forward, his enthusiasm contagious. "I have some contacts at a local music academy. They're always looking for new talent, and I think you'd be a great fit. Plus, I can introduce you to some producers who specialize in developing young musicians." Sarah's heart raced at the mention of producers and music academies. "Really? You think they'd be interested in me?" "Absolutely. You have something special that can't be taught," he assured her, his eyes sparkling with sincerity. "They'll see that once they hear you play." As they talked, he shared stories of his own experiences in the music world, how he had once dabbled in music production, helping to launch several successful artists. His passion for music was palpable, and Sarah found herself captivated by his energy. It was evident that he genuinely wanted to help her succeed, and it filled her with a sense of hope. "What do you envision for yourself?" he asked, his tone shifting to a more serious note. "Where do you see your music taking you?" She paused, considering his question. "I've always dreamed of performing in front of larger audiences, maybe even composing my own pieces. I want to connect with people through music, just like I did that night at the restaurant. But I don't know if I have the skills to back that up." "You do," he replied, his voice steady and reassuring. "It's about honing your craft, and I can help you with that. It's not just about the technical skills. It's about finding your unique voice. That's what will resonate with audiences." Sarah nodded, feeling the weight of his words settle in her mind. It was true. She had always wanted to express herself through music, but she had allowed fear and doubt to hold her back. "Okay, I'm ready to take that step. What's next?" "Let's set up some sessions at the music academy. he said, pulling out his phone to check his calendar. "I'll contact them today and see when we can get you in for an audition. Once you're in, you can start taking lessons and working on your performance skills." An audition? The word sent a jolt of nerves through her. What if I mess up? "Everyone feels that way before an audition. It's natural," he assured her, a reassuring smile playing on his lips. "Just remember why you're doing this. It's about sharing your passion, not about perfection. Focus on the music and let that guide you." His encouragement helped to calm her anxiety. She had spent so long waiting for the right moment, and here it was, presented to her like a gift. As their meeting wrapped up, Sarah felt a sense of exhilaration mixed with nerves. They exchanged numbers again, solidifying their connection. The millionaire promised to follow up with details about the academy and their potential sessions, leaving her with a renewed sense of purpose. In the days that followed, Sarah's excitement grew as she prepared for her upcoming audition. She practiced diligently, rediscovering the joy of music that had been buried beneath years of self-doubt and routine. Each note she played felt like a declaration of her intent, a promise to herself that she would embrace this new path. When the day of her audition finally arrived, Sarah felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. She arrived at the academy, a modern building filled with soundproof studios and vibrant artwork. The atmosphere buzzed with energy, and as she stepped inside, she could see other aspiring musicians practicing in various rooms, their notes creating a tapestry of sound. Taking a deep breath, Sarah made her way to the reception area, where she was greeted by a friendly staff member who directed her to the audition room. As she walked down the hallway, the faint sounds of violins, pianos, and even a drum set echoed around her, filling her with both inspiration and nervousness. When she entered the audition room, she was met by a panel of 3 instructors seated behind a long table. They were a mix of ages and backgrounds, each exuding an air of authority and expertise. "Welcome, Sarah," one of them said with a warm smile. "We're excited to hear you play today. What will you be performing for us?" Her heart raced as she set her violin and bow on the stand, recalling the pieces she had practiced in preparation for this moment. "I'll be playing a classical piece and an original composition," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. "Excellent. Whenever you're ready," the instructor said, gesturing for her to begin. As she lifted the violin to her shoulder, Sarah felt a surge of adrenaline. She closed her eyes for a moment, blocking out the world around her, focusing on the music that flowed through her veins. With a deep breath, she began to play, her fingers moving confidently over the strings. The sound that emerged was rich and full, and for a brief moment, the room fell away. It was just her and the music. Each note resonated with her passion, the vibrations echoing her emotions. She poured everything she had into the performance, channeling the nervous energy into something beautiful. As she transitioned to her original composition, a sense of pride welled up within her. This was her voice, her creation, a reflection of her journey, her struggles, and her triumphs. When she finished, the room erupted into silence for a moment before the panel began to clap, their expressions a mix of admiration and surprise. "Wonderful, Sarah," one of the instructors said, beaming at her. "You have an impressive command of the instrument and a unique voice. Your original piece was particularly captivating." "Thank you," she replied, her heart swelling with pride and relief. Another instructor added, "We see a lot of potential in you. If you're willing to work hard, we'd love to have you here as a student." The news hit her like a tidal wave. "Really? "You mean it?" she asked, a mixture of disbelief and joy flooding through her. "Absolutely. You have the talent, and with guidance, you can develop it further. We'll be in touch with details about enrollment and your schedule," the instructor said, jotting down notes. As she left the audition room, a euphoric feeling enveloped her. She had taken a leap of faith, and it had paid off. The fear that had gripped her for so long began to fade, replaced by a sense of purpose and determination. She was ready to embrace this new chapter of her life. In the following weeks, she immersed herself in her studies at the academy, surrounded by fellow musicians who shared her passion. The instructors guided her through lessons on technique, performance, and composition, challenging her to push her boundaries and explore her creativity. Each class felt like a step closer to realizing her dreams, and with every practice session, her confidence blossomed. But what excited her most were the connections she was building, not just with her instructors, but also with other students. They formed a tight-knit community, sharing their aspirations, struggles, and triumphs. Sarah found inspiration in their stories, realizing that she wasn't alone in her journey. As the weeks turned into months, Sarah's skills grew, and she began performing in smaller showcases at the academy. Each performance built her confidence further, and the thrill of being on stage became a familiar rush. The supportive cheers from her fellow students fueled her desire to share her music with a larger audience. One evening, after a particularly exhilarating showcase, Sarah was approached by a fellow student named Mark. He was a charismatic guitarist with a passion for songwriting, and they quickly bonded over their shared love for music. "You're amazing out there," he said, his enthusiasm infectious. "We should collaborate on something together." The idea thrilled her. "Really? I'd love that. I've been wanting to explore more of my original compositions." And so began their creative partnership. They spent hours jamming together, combining their different musical styles and ideas. Sarah found herself experimenting with new melodies and lyrics, and their sessions became a sanctuary for creativity. As they worked together, they started crafting a unique sound that blended Sarah's classical influences with Mark's contemporary rock elements. Their music took on a life of its own, each piece reflecting their personalities and experiences. They even began performing together at open mic nights in the city, where the excitement of sharing their creations with a live audience ignited a new passion within Sarah. The thrill of performing with Mark was exhilarating, but it also reminded her of the promise she had made to herself to pursue music wholeheartedly. With each performance, she could feel her dreams inching closer to reality. But even as she thrived in her newfound passion, the looming presence of self-doubt occasionally crept back in. One evening, after a particularly successful performance at a popular venue, they sat outside on a small terrace, the city lights twinkling in the distance. "You were fantastic tonight," Mark said, a proud smile lighting up his face. "The crowd loved you." "Thanks," Sarah replied, a hint of uncertainty in her voice. "But sometimes I wonder if I'm really cut out for this. What if I don't make it? What if this is just a phase?" Mark turned to her, his expression serious. "Sarah, every artist has doubts. It's part of the process. But look at how far you've come. You have the talent and the drive. You need to trust yourself. You belong here." His words resonated with her, a reminder that she had already made significant strides in her journey. Sarah realized that doubt would always be part of the process, but so was the joy of creation and connection. As they continued to perform and collaborate, Sarah also received unexpected support from the Millionaire, who had kept in touch throughout her journey. He often checked in on her progress and even attended some of her performances. His encouragement bolstered her confidence and solidified her belief in herself. One night, after a particularly thrilling performance, Sarah spotted him in the audience, his eyes alight with pride. As she finished her set and took her bow, she felt a rush of gratitude wash over her. She had taken a chance, and it had transformed her life in ways she had never imagined. As Sarah continued to navigate the ups and downs of her musical journey, she learned to embrace both the triumphs and the challenges. She poured her heart into her music, finding solace in each note and melody. She began to see music not just as a career, but as an essential part of who she was, a way to express herself and connect with others on a deeper level. With every performance, every composition, and every moment of doubt, Sarah grew stronger, her love for music propelling her forward. She was no longer just a waitress with a forgotten dream. She was a musician on the rise, ready to face whatever the future held. And as she stepped into the spotlight, she knew that she had finally begun to write her own story, one note at a time. As the months rolled on, Sarah found herself fully immersed in her musical journey, and the rhythm of her life began to shift. Each day felt like a new note in a composition, building towards something greater, more complex and beautiful. Her collaboration with Mark blossomed, and they quickly became known around the local music scene for their chemistry and captivating performances. They spent countless hours in the studio, honing their sound, experimenting with different genres and influences. Sarah introduced classical elements into their music, while Mark brought in modern rock and folk vibes. Together they created a unique fusion that captured the essence of both their backgrounds. It was exhilarating to see their ideas meld together, transforming into something neither of them could have achieved alone. However, with each successful gig came a heightened sense of expectation. They began to attract a small but dedicated following, and Sarah felt the pressure mounting to continue delivering exceptional performances. The thrill of being on stage was intoxicating, but the fear of disappointing their fans loomed over her like a storm cloud. One evening, after a particularly vibrant show at a popular local venue, Sarah sat backstage with Mark, the adrenaline still coursing through her veins. "Can you believe how many people showed up?" she exclaimed, her eyes wide with excitement. It felt like the whole room was singing along. Mark chuckled, wiping sweat from his brow. "Yeah, that was insane. I think we might actually be onto something here." "But Sarah..." His tone shifted to something more serious. "We need to talk about what's next. I think it's time we start thinking about recording an EP." The suggestion sent a thrill through her, but it was quickly tempered by apprehension. "An EP? Like a real recording?" she asked, a mixture of excitement and fear bubbling within her. "What if it doesn't live up to our performances? What if people don't like it?" "Hey, it's just a way to capture what we've created so far. We could put together our best songs and showcase who we are as artists. No one expects perfection. They just want to hear our story," he reassured her, his enthusiasm infectious. As they discussed the logistics, Sarah felt a flicker of hope ignite within her. Recording an EP could be a pivotal step in her journey. She envisioned holding her own music in her hands, sharing it with a broader audience, and perhaps even paving the way for future opportunities. But the self-doubt that had plagued her in the past crept back in. What if we don't have enough material? What if we can't recreate the energy of our live shows in the studio? She mused, the questions swirling in her mind. "Every artist faces that doubt," Mark replied, leaning back in his chair, his demeanor calm. "But we have a solid foundation. We've written some really great songs together. Plus, we can always bring in a few new ones. I'm confident that we can make this happen." His unwavering belief in her helped to quell her anxiety. "Okay, let's do it," she exclaimed, her excitement returning. Let's start planning. They immediately got to work, setting deadlines and organizing their ideas. Sarah spent evenings refining lyrics and melodies, pouring her heart into every word, wanting to encapsulate her journey into their music. She drew from her experiences as a waitress, the thrill of rediscovering her passion and the moments of doubt that had threatened to hold her back. Each song became a reflection of her growth, a testament to the struggles she had overcome. In the weeks leading up to their recording sessions, Sarah found herself consumed by the creative process. Late nights were spent in her small apartment, scribbling lyrics on scraps of paper, surrounded by half-finished cups of coffee and the familiar warmth of her violin. She immersed herself in the melodies, experimenting with different harmonies and arrangements, always pushing to find the heart of each song. Finally, the day of their recording session arrived. They chose a local studio that had a reputation for producing high-quality recordings and had worked with some of the artists they admired. Stepping inside the studio, Sarah felt a mix of nerves and excitement. The walls were lined with soundproofing, and the air was thick with creativity. "Welcome to our sanctuary," Mark grinned as they entered the control room, where the producer was waiting for them. "This is going to be epic." The producer, a middle-aged man with a laid-back demeanor and a wealth of experience, greeted them with a warm smile. "I'm excited to hear what you two have cooked up. Let's get started." As they set up their instruments, Sarah couldn't help but feel a sense of awe. This was the moment she had dreamed of, capturing her music in a way that could be shared with the world. The reality of her journey settled in, and she felt gratitude wash over her. The first song they recorded was one of their originals, a vibrant piece that showcased both their talents. As they played together, the chemistry between them flowed effortlessly, creating a sound that filled the studio with energy. The producer nodded along, encouraging them to push further, to dig deeper into their emotions. "Let's try that bridge again, but this time, really let loose," he instructed, his voice firm but encouraging. "We want to capture that raw energy you bring to your live performances." After several takes, Sarah felt herself letting go of her insecurities, allowing the music to guide her. With each recording, she grew more confident, pouring everything she had into their sound. It was exhilarating, and the magic of the moment enveloped her. As the day went on, they recorded multiple tracks, each session bringing them closer to the final product. By the end of the first day, they had captured the essence of their collaboration, an authentic blend of their unique styles. But as the days turned into weeks of recording, the pressure began to mount. Sarah started to doubt whether their songs would resonate with listeners the way they had hoped. Each playback revealed minor imperfections that made her cringe. One evening, after an exhausting day in the studio, she confided in Mark. "What if we're just fooling ourselves? What if no one wants to hear this?" "Sarah, stop it. You have to trust yourself," Mark replied, his tone firm. "You're an incredible musician, and we've created something special together. Remember why we started this in the first place? To share our music and connect with people. You can't let fear stifle that." His words struck a chord, reminding her of the passion that had driven her to pick up her violin again. She took a deep breath, trying to let go of the doubt that had been creeping in. "You're right. I just need to focus on the music." With renewed determination, they pressed on, working late into the night, refining their tracks and adding layers to their sound. They experimented with different arrangements, incorporating harmonies and instrumentals that brought their songs to life in ways they hadn't imagined. One particularly late night, while listening to a playback of their favorite track, Sarah had an idea. What if we add a string quartet to this? It would elevate the whole piece." Mark's eyes lit up. "That's brilliant! We could bring in a few friends from the academy. Let's do it!" They quickly reached out to fellow musicians, and soon a small ensemble gathered in the studio. As the quartet joined in, the music soared to new heights, filling the room with a rich, vibrant sound that made Sarah's heart race. It was exhilarating to see their vision come to life, to feel the collaborative energy flowing through everyone in the room. After several long weeks of hard work and creativity, they finally completed their EP. The sense of accomplishment was overwhelming, and Sarah felt a mix of pride and disbelief at what they had created. They had captured their journey in a collection of songs, each one a piece of their story. They held a small release party at the same venue where they had first performed together, inviting friends, family, and fellow musicians to celebrate their achievement. As Sarah looked around the room, she felt a rush of gratitude for everyone who had supported her along the way, her colleagues from the restaurant, her instructors, and especially Mark, who had believed in her when she had doubted herself. When it came time to perform the songs from their EP, Sarah's heart raced with excitement. Standing on that familiar stage, she looked out into the crowd, their faces filled with anticipation. She took a deep breath, her fingers resting on the strings of her violin. "This is our first release, and we're so excited to share it with you all. Thank you for being part of our journey." As the first notes filled the air, the energy in the room shifted. They played with passion, the songs resonating deeply within her. The audience was captivated, singing along and swaying to the music. For the first time, she felt truly free, completely in her element. When they finished, the applause was thunderous. The crowd cheered, and Sarah felt tears welling in her eyes. In that moment, she realized that all the hard work, the doubts, and the fears had been worth it. She had stepped into her destiny, and she was no longer just a waitress. She was a musician, an artist, a storyteller. As the night wore on, friends congratulated them, and the energy of the room buzzed with excitement. The feeling of community wrapped around her, and she knew that this was just the beginning. With Mark by her side and a world of possibilities ahead, she felt more confident than ever. In the weeks that followed the release, Sarah and Mark promoted their EP, sharing it on social media and performing at various venues around the city. The response was overwhelmingly positive, and they quickly garnered attention from local radio stations and music blogs. It was exhilarating to see their hard work paying off, and the thrill of being recognized for their music fueled their passion even more. However, amidst the excitement, Sarah remained grounded. She knew that this journey was only the start, and she was determined to keep pushing herself, to keep creating. Each performance, each song, and each moment on stage reminded her of why she had chosen this path, to share her music and connect with others. With every note she played, she felt a sense of purpose and fulfillment that she had been missing for so long. No longer just a waitress trying to survive, she was now an artist living her dream, ready to embrace whatever the future had in store. The months that followed the release of their EP were a whirlwind of activity and excitement for Sarah and Mark. Their music started to gain traction, and the small local following they had cultivated began to grow. Fans from different parts of the city began to show up at their shows, and with each performance, they felt the energy in the room swell, igniting their passion even further. As the buzz around their music expanded, they were approached by a local music festival looking to feature emerging artists. The opportunity to perform at the festival was a dream come true for Sarah. It would not only give them exposure, but also allow them to share the stage with established artists they admired. The thought filled her with excitement, but as the date approached, it also brought with it a wave of anxiety. "We have to make this performance unforgettable," Mark said one evening, as they practiced at the studio. "Let's add some special elements, maybe a couple of surprise guests or a unique arrangement for one of our songs." Sarah nodded, her heart racing at the idea. "I love that. What if we invited some of our friends from the string quartet to join us for a few songs? Their sound would really elevate the performance." Mark's eyes lit up. "Yes, let's do it. We can also incorporate some visuals like lights and projections. It'll give the audience something extra to connect with." As they planned, Sarah pored over every detail. She wanted to ensure that their performance represented not just their music, but the journey they had taken to get there. The festival was an opportunity to share their story with a larger audience, and she wanted it to resonate deeply with everyone who attended. The weeks leading up to the festival were filled with rehearsals and late nights spent refining their set. They called upon their friends to join them, and soon the energy in the studio grew electric. Musicians from different backgrounds came together, and the sound was richer than ever. They experimented with different arrangements, weaving in classical elements that Sarah cherished, alongside Mark's contemporary rock influences. When the day of the festival arrived, the atmosphere was electric. The venue was filled with throngs of music lovers, and the stage was adorned with vibrant lights and a backdrop that showcased a stunning array of colors. As they prepared backstage, Sarah felt a mix of exhilaration and nerves. "Just remember, we're here to share our story," Mark reminded her, sensing her apprehension. "No matter how many people are out there, just focus on the music and the message we want to convey." With those words resonating in her mind, they stepped onto the stage, greeted by a roaring crowd. The lights beamed down on them, illuminating the faces of those who had come to support them. Sarah felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. This was the culmination of all her hard work, her perseverance, and her belief in herself. They kicked off their set with one of their more upbeat songs, and as the music flowed, the audience responded with enthusiasm, dancing and cheering along. The energy was infectious, and Sarah found herself lost in the moment, her worries dissipating as she played. The thrill of sharing their music with so many people ignited a fire within her, reminding her of why she had chosen this path. As they moved through their set, they introduced their friends from the string quartet, and the sound that erupted from the stage was nothing short of magical. The blend of violins, cellos, and their own instruments created a rich tapestry of sound that enveloped the crowd. It was a collaborative effort that transcended individual performances, turning their set into an unforgettable experience. After performing several songs, they reached the climax of their set with a heartfelt ballad that Sarah had written about her journey. As she sang, she poured her heart into every word, each note resonating with emotion. She looked out into the audience, and to her surprise, she noticed people holding up their phones, capturing the moment, their faces filled with joy and connection. When they finished, the applause was deafening. The crowd roared, and Sarah could feel the energy surging through her veins. They took a moment to soak it all in before launching into their final song, a high-energy anthem that had everyone on their feet. As they wrapped up their set, Sarah felt a sense of accomplishment unlike anything she had ever experienced. They had not only performed, but had connected with the audience on a deeper level. In that moment, she understood that music was a bridge, linking people together through shared emotions and experiences. After leaving the stage, the exhilaration of the performance lingered in the air. Fans approached them, expressing their admiration and excitement. "You guys were amazing," one woman exclaimed. her eyes shining with enthusiasm. "Your music is so inspiring." Sarah felt a warmth spread through her chest at the recognition. "Thank you so much. That means the world to us," she replied, her voice brimming with gratitude. As the festival continued, they mingled with other artists, sharing stories and connections. Sarah felt a sense of community envelop her, and she was reminded of the journey she had taken to reach this point, the connections she had forged with other musicians, and the support of her friends and family had shaped her path, and she felt more determined than ever to continue pursuing her dreams. In the days following the festival, the impact of their performance rippled through social media. Clips of their set were shared widely, garnering attention from music blogs and local radio stations. As opportunities began to arise, invites to collaborate with other artists and requests for interviews, Sarah felt a renewed sense of purpose. However, with the excitement came the realization that she had to navigate the complexities of the music industry. Each opportunity brought with it new challenges, and the pressure to deliver only intensified. Sarah found herself balancing a whirlwind of commitments, from rehearsals to marketing their music, and it was exhilarating yet exhausting. One evening, after a long day of meetings and practices, she sat in her apartment, her mind racing. "I'm grateful for everything that's happening, but I also feel so overwhelmed," she confided in Mark during a video call. "I get it," Mark replied, his voice steady and reassuring. "It's a lot, but remember to take time for yourself too. We didn't start this journey to burnout, right? We need to keep the joy in our music." His words struck a chord. Sarah took a moment to breathe, realizing that amid the chaos, she needed to prioritize her passion and creativity. She had to remember why she had started making music in the first place. Taking Mark's advice to heart, she decided to carve out moments for herself amidst the hectic schedule. She started dedicating time to explore her creativity outside of their collaborative work. Whether it was writing in her journal, experimenting with new melodies on her own, or simply taking long walks while listening to inspiring music, she sought to reconnect with the essence of her artistry. One day, while wandering through a nearby park, she found herself drawn to a quaint little spot where musicians often gathered. There were street performers playing guitars, drumming on buckets, and even a group of dancers moving to the rhythm of the music. It sparked something within her, a reminder of the pure joy that music had always brought her. Inspired, she decided to join in, pulling out her violin and playing along with a few musicians. It felt freeing to play without the pressure of a performance or expectations. As she played, a small crowd began to gather, listening intently. Their smiles and nods of appreciation filled her with warmth, and she realized how much she had missed this spontaneous connection with her audience. Afterward, a few people approached her, eager to share their thoughts. "Your playing is beautiful. Have you ever thought about doing more street performances?" one man asked, his eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. Sarah smiled, feeling a sense of camaraderie. "Thank you. I've never really considered it seriously, but it's such a liberating experience. Maybe I should." As she left the park that day, she felt a renewed sense of purpose and connection. The joy of making music for the sake of sharing it with others reignited her passion, reminding her that the heart of her artistry lay in those moments of pure expression and connection. With this new perspective, she and Mark began incorporating more spontaneous performances into their schedule. They organized small pop-up shows in parks and community events, inviting their followers to join them. The response was overwhelming, and each performance felt like a celebration of their journey, a reminder of where they had started and how far they had come. As they navigated the highs and lows of their musical journey, Sarah learned to embrace the unpredictability of the industry. They collaborated with other artists, exploring different genres and styles, and every experience enriched their sound and deepened their connection. She found beauty in the process, understanding that each challenge was an opportunity for growth and learning. Their journey took an exciting turn when they were offered a chance to record their first full-length album. It was an opportunity that brought with it both excitement and trepidation. "This is it, our first album," Mark exclaimed, his enthusiasm infectious. "Yeah, but we need to make sure it reflects us, our story, and everything we've learned," Sarah replied, her mind racing with possibilities. "We can't rush this. It has to be authentic." With that in mind, they began brainstorming concepts for the album, carefully curating a collection of songs that would encapsulate their journey. They revisited old melodies and lyrics, experimenting with new ideas, and their creative partnership flourished. As they delved deeper into the recording process, Sarah felt a sense of fulfillment unlike anything she had ever experienced. Each song became a testament to her growth, a reflection of her journey from a waitress with forgotten dreams to a passionate artist living her truth. The release of their album was a celebration of all the moments that had led them there, the challenges, the triumphs, and the connections they had made along the way. They organized a grand release party, inviting fans, friends, and fellow musicians to join them in celebrating this milestone. When the night arrived, the venue was filled with excitement, and Sarah could hardly contain her anticipation. As she took the stage with Mark, she felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. They had come so far, and tonight was a celebration of their journey, their artistry, and their commitment to sharing their story through music. As they performed their new songs, the energy in the room was electric. The audience sang along, their voices intertwining with Sarah's and Mark's, creating a beautiful tapestry of sound. In that moment, she knew she had found her place, not just on stage, but within the music community and the hearts of those who had supported her along the way. As the night came to a close and the applause echoed through the venue, Sarah felt a sense of peace and fulfillment. She had found her voice and embraced her passion for music. No longer merely a waitress, she was now a storyteller, an artist, and a beacon of inspiration for those around her. In the days that followed, they received messages from fans who shared how their music had touched their lives, how it had resonated with their own journeys. Each message fueled her passion, reminding her of the power of music to heal, connect, and inspire. With every performance, Sarah continued to share her story, to connect with others, and to embrace the unpredictability of her journey. She learned to celebrate each milestone and to savor the moments of joy along the way. As she stood on stage, sharing her music and her heart with the world, she realized that the journey was far from over. There were still new horizons to explore, new songs to write, and countless stories waiting to be told. And with Mark by her side, she felt ready to embrace whatever adventures lay ahead, knowing that her music would always be a guiding light on her path.